A Sioux City veteran and two-time Purple Heart recipient was chosen as one of many to be honored at the 2026 Purple Heart Patriot Project. Retired U.S. Army Colonel John Mansfield was chosen as Iowa's representative. Mansfield enlisted in the U.S. Army back in February of 1966 and received 2 Purple Hearts among several honors during his time of service. Now, in May 1968, he received his first Purple Heart after leading an assault up to a ridge line overlooking Camp Evans and the 1st Cavalry. His second Purple Heart came during the same month during a North Vietnam Army ambush. And you can find out more about Mansfield's story, the National Purple Heart Honor Mission, in this story. It's online right now at ktiv.com.